not one, but two beastly topics this week. First, the horrifying reign of Luis Garavito, the Colombian serial killer dubbed the Beast. Then we'll journey into prophecy to uncover the prophetic history of the biblical mark of the beast. It's going to be a wild one on the Parallax Podcast.
Hi, Willow.
Hi, Karisa. Did you love how quickly I whipped out that intro?
I already started recording. I was like, I'm like, are you ready? And you're like, yeah. And then you're like, wait. I'm like, wait a minute. I already hit record.
I was going to be sitting here in silence for a little bit while I found it. But as soon as I unlocked my phone, I had it right there pulled up. And I was like, I'm doing so good tonight.
So lucky. Well, for anybody who's new to our podcast, welcome.
Hi.
And for those who are, current followers, welcome back.
Welcome back to your daily dose of the spiritual and true crime.
Weekly dose. Yeah, we can't do this daily.
But daily? I don't know why I said daily. Weekly dose. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Weekly, yes. But and to give insight for those new listeners that might be out there, we explore fascinating topics like true crime history, modern true crime, culture, and like ancient texts, and we kind of put it all together. And so for today's topic in this episode, we're like driving into some like of the topics of the beast that are often debated in religious prophecy, like the mark of the beast. And then Willow's going to give us this true crime case that is very notorious for the killer that's called the Beast. Mm-hmm. This is kind of how we do things. We're going to take the topic of the beast and we're going to divide it in half.
Essentially, yeah. And I will say, so now that we've had the more fun, lighthearted opening to this episode, super quick disclaimer when it comes to the case of the Beast that I'll be bringing to you guys today. This is an extremely heavy case. It does deal with child death. So if that is something that you don't think you'll be able to handle right now, then feel free to skip to about halfway through the episode when Karisa takes over and starts talking about the mark of the beast. It is probably going to be a little bit easier for you to stomach. But I just want to put that out there.
Listen to you. Normally you're like, oh, I'm not ready for what you're about to tell me because you think I'm going to bring to the table all these demons and stuff.
Well, I mean, like, I'm actually, okay, I'm a little bit more fascinated to figure out what this is because you told me without giving away too much that my perception of the mark of the beast or the common perception of the mark of the beast is not what it appears. So I'm hesitantly intrigued. I will probably be frightened later. But
okay.
Are you ready for me to tell you this horrible story?
Sounds good.
Because it's
yeah, because and again, if you're new here, neither of us know which direction we're taking the cases. We just know what the topics are.
Yeah. And
I try to not research anything that Willow's doing. I just try to be like key points that I might be able to pull from. And since I knew we were doing something from the mark of the beast, I sent Willow several cases that refer to the beast as a murderer, and she could select from there what she wanted to talk about, and she did a deep dive into a case. And so I do not know what she's about to bring because I don't know anything about this killer.
I'm so sorry that you're now going to know about it. So I did write myself a little bit of a script from my research, but I also, before recording, I went ahead and listened to a podcast about it so that I could just kind of refresh my memory and have it, at the forefront of my mind, quite unfortunately. So thanks to the casual criminalist for some of the things I'm going to talk about, because some of it I didn't put in my script, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So let's get started. Luis Alfredo Garavito Cubillo was born on January 25th, 1957 in Genova, Colombia. He was the eldest of 7 children in a poor rural environment. His childhood, by his own later description and by researchers' accounts, was marked by violence, physical punishment, neglect, and early exposure to sexual abuse. These are all his own allegations. We don't actually have any proof for sure that this is what he went through. This is based off of his own recollections that he told people about. Garavito attended only a few years of school. He described being tied to a tree as a child, beaten with a machete, witnessing his father's alcoholism and aggression, feeling and feeling deeply isolated and angry. His father, from what I heard on the podcast, he was very abusive towards his mother. I think Garavito also alleged he was abusive towards the children too. I'm not 100% positive on that one. In his adolescence, he began to molest his younger siblings and local children, behavior that went largely unchecked at the time.
The dad or the
Garavito.
The son.
Yeah, as he came into his teenage years, the beast, he was already beginning to molest his younger siblings and local children.
Gross.
Mm-hmm. And because he was in, which I'm going to kind of expand on this a little bit later, but because he was in a poor area, nobody really reported it or did anything about it because the children that he was targeting weren't important. They were literally, I think they were called the disposables. And again, I'll get into in just a little bit, but that's kind of where the area he's in right now. This early trauma, researchers suggest, combined with personality traits associated with antisocial behavior and sadism, created the psychological terrain upon which his horror would later unfold. By the early 1980s, he was unemployed, drifting, drinking heavily, detached from stable work or relationships. He had failed attempts at integrating in society, and his attraction shifted towards young boys. So this is when he's an adult. And I also want to make a point here, while he's drifting, because pretty much his entire life he's drifting. And when it says that he's drinking heavily, he began drinking as a teenager. So he is a ridiculous drunk. He's drifting here and there and already targeting and sexually abusing children. I believe, based on the podcast I listened to, before he even started the killings, it was estimated that he had between 200 to 300 victims that he had molested throughout Colombia.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. And he hasn't even started the kill. It's bad. It's bad. The core killing period of Garavito is generally dated from the early 1990s to 1999. According to investigators, between 1992 and 1999, he murdered at least 140 children, perhaps many more. Some estimates go to 200 plus or even 300. In the podcast I listened to, he was apparently averaging at least one child a week when he was really into it, shall we say. And one child a week. He had also, at this time, right before he started the killings, he thought of himself as a Catholic. And he had this weird belief that because he was Catholic and he could just go to the priest and confess his sins, that meant that he was safe, that he could still go to heaven, even though he was molesting children and then started murdering them. And so after he started murdering them, he had these moments of like almost these mental breaks. This like, well, I still want to be a God-fearing person, but I'm murdering children. And that's horrible. That's awful. So he drank even more heavily for a half a second. And then finally just decided, well, I guess I'm evil, and converted to, I guess, Satanism, but like the actual like witchcraft, actually bad Satanism, and not the Satanism that's actually not that bad. So he just decided to say, well, I guess I'm evil. This is how it is. But his victims were mostly boys between the ages of 8 and 16, although exceptional cases included younger, like as young as 6 years old. Oh. And they were from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. So these were the disposables. He did have a few that were more like almost middle class, but most of his victims were the disposables who didn't have anyone to search for them and didn't have anyone to report them missing. And there was even a murder that was talked about on the podcast I listened to. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because it is really bad and we're just not going to go there. But this murder was so awful of this 15-year-old boy. And when police found his body, they were like, oh, well, this is common. The disposables are killing each other like this all the time. And I was like, you find the mangled body of a child and just like, oh, this is fine. This happens all the time. Like, insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's insane for us because to find that is just unfathomable. But like in certain cultures, like it's just part of the day to day. Like, there's yeah. Because
Well, and I
I
mean,
know
for
that,
them at that time, that's how it was. There was a lot of upheaval in Colombia at the time. It wasn't very safe. It wasn't very stable in general. So, I mean, that's how these disposables came to be. And it's just like, I understand that's how it was at the time, but like you said, for me, it's unfathomable because I just, obviously we don't live in a time like that.
yeah, I know that there's like in the Hindu culture, there are the untouchables. These are people that you don't touch. They're considered filthy and defiled. They're human beings. They're not. I don't know. That's just
Yeah.
weird for me. Or I shouldn't say it's weird. That is a strange thought process for me.
Yes, it's not something that we're used to, basically. All right, let's unfortunately continue. Garavito's method was disturbingly consistent. He posed variously as a monk, as a homeless person, or as a street vendor, appearances which allowed him to engage children in public areas, offer them small amounts of money, food, or work, and lure them into more isolated terrain. He also moved around constantly to prevent people from recognizing him and to prevent police from catching on to what he was doing. Once he had a child away from sight, the torture began. He bound them, sexually assaulted them, mutilated them, and then killed. Some corpses were found with their throats cut, others with deep abdominal wounds, decapitations in some cases. The 2002 research and it is the Archive of Criminology, but it is in German, and I know Archive in Fjord, but I don't know how to pronounce criminology in German, so there's that. Describes his killings as occurring while drunk in hidden areas with ritualistic cutting of the neck. And that is true. He was always drunk whenever he was killing these boys. And they were always, almost always young boys because he was gay. Now, that does not mean, everybody use your common sense. That is not a reflection on the gay community by any means. This is one person who was sadistic. Gonna put that little thing out there.
Yeah. His sexual preference has nothing to do with him being.
Oh, absolutely nothing to do with the beast that he is.
Yeah.
He is messed up on his own. So like I had said before, he traveled widely across Colombia. His crimes occurred in at least 11 out of the country's 32 departments or counties, kind of what you would call it. In November of 1997, authorities discovered a graveyard with 36 bodies of boys near, I think it's Pereira in western Colombia. That finally prompted a nationwide manhunt for what was already an active predator. The scale of his operation meant that for years, children disappeared, their families often poor, and investigations delayed or obscured. And again, Colombia in that era was struggling with internal conflict, poverty, over-resourced policing, and street children who were invisible to many. And the police officers at the time, especially in some of the smaller areas that weren't quite as built up, they were really easy to bribe. I think there was a story of Garavito being arrested for, I think, theft or something, and he was able to bribe his way out of the cell that he was in with it's 1,000 pesos, which is I think 50 cents in American dollars, and a few watches. And so then they let him go. So you have really corrupt police. You have these children who essentially don't really matter because they're the disposables. They're just these street children, and there's nobody there to protect them. There's nobody there to help them. But there was one detective, and unfortunately I cannot remember his name because I, of course, did not write it down. But there was one detective who was like determined to figure out who this guy was. And honestly, this detective is kind of the whole reason why they ended up being able to find him, because he was keeping up with his method, essentially with Garavito's method of how he was killing these children, what he was doing to them. And then that detective was able to tie all of these cases together. And there was one point where Garavito got incredibly drunk and he found a victim, and I believe he killed the victim and was about to go and perform some acts of necrophilia when he passed out, and he had a lit cigarette in his hand. They were in like some sugarcane fields, and his lit cigarette caught the fields on fire. And before he woke up, like I guess it wasn't one half, it was one side of his body. I know it was like his arm and some other parts of one side of his body got 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Then he finally woke up and panicked and ran. He left behind his glasses, he left behind his shoes, he left behind his pants because he had almost unclothed himself, and he left behind the bottle of alcohol that he was consuming. So with all this evidence, with all this forensic evidence, they were able to determine that the glasses belonged to somebody who had astigmatism in one eye, which he did. They were able to determine that it belonged to somebody whose ears were in a odd placement, quote unquote. And this guy, Garavito, had earned the nickname of Goofy from a lot of the street children because his ears were really low, like they hung low. So they called him Goofy. And then based on the shoes, they were able to determine that whoever these shoes belonged to, the patterns of wear and tear on the sole, the very front of the shoe wasn't very worn, which meant that the person's feet were too small for those shoes. And on one foot, there was this like circular pattern on the ball of the foot, which meant that this person walked with a limp and would kind of twist that foot as they were walking, which he did because he had broken a leg like a few years back and had healed poorly because he didn't go to the hospital. So he walked with a limp. I was like, that's crazy that they were able to figure all of that out. So then they were finally able to narrow down the suspect list to all of the suspects who matched this description. And Garavito, of course, was one of them. The reason why he was ultimately caught was just him being stupid, to be honest, because he had there was like a 12-year-old boy that he had taken and was trying to make one of his victims. And then there was another 16-year-old boy who saw him attacking this 12-year-old boy. This 16-year-old started throwing stones and rocks at him. So then the younger boy was able to escape, and they're running to get away. The 16-year-old took the boy to a mechanic shop and dropped the boy off there with the mechanic and ended up leaving because he didn't want to get mixed up in the business any further. The mechanic called the police. The boy's mother had reported him missing, and so when she got there and picked them up, the policemen drove him and his mother to the police station so that they could file a report. And while they're in the police car heading towards the police station, they pass by Garavito, who's just walking on the side of the road, and the kid was like, that's him, that's who attacked me. So they promptly got out and arrested Garavito. Now he was arrested and ended up using a false name. I'm going to pronounce it so wrong, and I'm sorry. I think it's Bonifacio Moreira.
Sounded good to me.
Thank you. I believe that's what it is. I am not Hispanic, Colombian in any way, shape, or form, so I do apologize for my pronunciations. But after they got him detained and they went through and they were able to prove all the circumstantial evidence and then eventually the DNA evidence, they were able to connect him to all of these different child homicide cases. Once interrogated, Garavito confessed to killing many dozens of children. In court and subsequent statements, he admitted in various counts to between 140 to 200 plus murders. But he was...
Holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, that's why he's called the Beast. But he was only convicted for only 138 cases.
Still a lot.
Yeah. This was in December 1999. He was sentenced to 1,853 years and 9 days. I don't know what the 9 days is there for. In prison by Colombian courts. But get this. The Colombian law caps effective time to around 40 years. So in reality, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of 200 plus boys.
Why do they exaggerate so much?
I'm like, why would you sentence him to 1,000 over 1,000 years if he's only going to serve 40? That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, if you're going to do that, just capital punishment, just death penalty. There's not very many cases where I'm like full throw, death penalty, because I'm kind of on the fence about how exactly I feel. But this is one where I'd say, okay, this is somebody who genuinely deserves it. Who I can say deserves it. Yeah, 100%.
I feel like at that point, you're confessing to like all of those, you deserve it. You deserve it.
Yeah. Now, what I will say, so it makes us all feel a little bit better. He was set to get out of prison in 2022 or 2023, but instead he died of eye cancer. So,
He should have never got out of prison.
No, he literally was set for release.
That's what I'm saying. That man should have never been allowed to leave.
No, that's why I was like, I mean, I'm happy. I don't hate to say it. I'm happy he died, but I also was like, I cannot believe that he was even 200 plus children. Okay, plus 5 adults who he killed because they were witnesses to crimes he had done. But 200 plus children. Why should that...
What was the time span?
Between 1992 and 1999. That's 7 years.
That's a lot.
200 plus in 7 years, dude.
Yeah, that's a lot.
He should have never, ever, 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 ever been. I don't know.
He should have been killed instantly in prison by somebody. I'm surprised a lot.
Right?
You hear about people who do things to children and then they don't make it very far in prison. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess he just hit it well. Or there's some other incredibly depraved individuals in that same prison who were just like, well, I've done worse, but I sincerely doubt it.
Yeah.
Families of missing children often waited years, hearing little for anything about their children. There are still at least, I think it was 27 of his victims who were unidentified because, again, these were disposables. So it was very, very difficult for them to identify these victims once they found them. Now, Garavito, like I said, exploited that invisibility because he knew that he would specifically target these children because he knew no one was going to look for them and that he could do whatever he wanted to them and no one would ever tell. No one would ever do anything about it.
I feel like that's how back in the 80s people would target runaways because we didn't have the internet like we do today.
Oh, there it is. He died in custody on October 12th, 2023 in a hospital in northern Colombia at the age of 66 from eye cancer. And I hope it was painful. I hope that his eyeball cancer was very painful because now that I've brought you this horrible, like really depressing story about the Beast of Colombia, Garavito, let me do a small little transition into what Karissa's going to talk about. Now, again, I know she's talking about the Mark of the Beast. I don't know tons about the Mark of the Beast in general, and I have literally no clue what she is about to bring to the table. But my little spin on the Mark of the Beast and connecting it to the Beast of Colombia beyond the Beast being his name is that we often think of a mark as something placed upon someone, but here the mark is both on the perpetrator and on society. Garavito carried the mark of childhood trauma, of violence, but society carried the mark of neglect, the invisibility of the victims, the fact that they didn't do anything right away for any of these children. And that's why his kill count was able to get so high, because nobody cared about these children.
Which is so sad.
And the Beast...
A child being without a family.
I know. And like that's what they did. And the other thing is these disposables, these children, this is how they lived. They would kill each other over a spot to sleep. That was the environment that they lived in. And so again, the police just finding dead bodies and saying, well, This happens all the time. The disposables are killing each other all the time, except it wasn't them killing each other. It was a predator stalking, torturing, and killing them.
And defiling them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a soulless human being.
Mm-hmm. Now, the beast label captures the magnitude of his crimes, but it also invites us to reflect. Every child he killed bore the mark of vulnerability, of neglect, of society's failure to protect. The earth of those rural killing fields bore the mark of unmarked graves. So this story is not only about the beast Garavito, it's about our collective responsibility to the vulnerable, the pattern of predation, and the call to remembrance.
You know, we talked about these grave sites in the last episode that we recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how those pull such dark energy and forces and so the place that they found these bodies, were they just in an open field? Were they someone's location? This is where he was known to stay. Did he keep them near him?
So he would, sorry, I had to move in my squeaky chair. It kind of depends. There were moments like in the beginning, if he was moving around, he would just like leave the bodies where they fell. Like if he took them to the sugarcane fields or to a forest, he would just leave the body where it fell. It either wouldn't be discovered, or when it would be discovered again, police would just like shrug their shoulders and leave. But there were multiple spots that were mass graves. So like if he found somewhere to stay, like a person who would take him in, because they would every once in a while, he would be able to find a woman who would take him in for like a half a second until they realized that he was an aggressive drunk and they kick him out. But if he had somewhere to stay, then he would create these mass graves, because that would be like his base of operation during that time.
Yeah, and then it's interesting that when he ran off, he left his shoes. And did he take his shoes off like the other guy from the previous case, because that was considered like sacred ground for him?
No, I think this is gonna be so gross. I think that he took his shoes off because he just wanted to take his clothes off before he defiled the body. But I don't know. But he didn't say anything specifically. He had
started being more into the ritualistic forms of killing in his belief system of not being a Christian anymore.
Yeah, he would start killing in the same way each time. Like he tightened up his methods.
Yeah, he created a ritual. Yeah, he created a ritual. It's interesting, because that's typically what they find, what works for them, what gives them the sexual gratification of the killing, what gets them off, essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it was listening to the podcast. They go into a lot more detail than I do. One, I don't have enough time, and two, it's such an awful case that I didn't want to get into too much of the detail, simply because it's just really disturbing.
Yeah.
But on the Casual Criminalist, they do I think it's an hour and a half, almost 2 hour long deep dive into this case. So if you can stomach it, if you, for whatever reason, want to know more information, you can go and listen there and hear more information. It's a heavy one. It's a really heavy one, though. So I tried to keep it, still keep the gravity of it out of respect for the victims, but also not go into too much of the awful detail.
Those poor babies.
I know. Well, now that I made things depressing, do you want to make it
I don't know
maybe slightly less depressing?
I'm not sure I can make it any better when we're talking about the Mark of the Beast.
I know.
Yeah, and I think when the Mark of the Beast came about, when we were talking about the David Koresh case that's coming out. Well, it's already came out technically by the time you listen
tomorrow, right?
It comes out tomorrow as of when we are recording.
As of us recording.
Correct. But again, if you're new to the podcast, to get started on my end, my field of study from ASU is religious studies and anthropology. So I love presenting cultures and beliefs next to what the horrors are that Willow presents in a true crime case.
The really awful, I don't want to say real life, but
I mean, it is real life.
Real life things that happen that humans do.
Right. Well, and sometimes where these, because we said this before, serial killers create their own religions.
Mm-hmm.
And when they create their own religions, it's usually founded in some kind of previous thought process,
Mm-hmm.
or the demons that we've mentioned prior that kind of invade their mind and teach them to do things that are so awful to other human beings. But
Yeah.
for now, let's talk about the mark of the beast. So for centuries, this concept has sparked fear, speculation, countless interpretations, influencing everything from theological discourses to pop culture. We see it in fiction movies, we see it in fictional books. We hear 666 and typically think we have this preconceived idea and thought of what it means. So,
Mm-hmm.
me, knowing that my co-host was not raised in a particularly religious household, uh, I was wanting to know, Miss Willow, what you
Mm-hmm.
think the phrase mark of the beast means as a religious concept.
So I was actually like 2 seconds away from being like, do you want to tell us what the mark of the beast is for those of us who did not grow up religious? But I guess I don't know. There's two different places that my mind goes when you say mark of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
I think of kind of pop culture, like you just said. I think of 666, or like the people talk about the 3 scratches they get whenever there's like the poltergeist activity.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think of that. I don't really know what that means for like mark of the beast, but that's kind of where my mind goes. I also think I start creating a novel out of it because I write sci-fi fantasy, and you say mark of the beast and I'm like, "Oh, fantasy, the beast." And I then start thinking of like, oh, what if somebody has a symbol or something on their body and that shows the mark of the, like, or like the Kraken, when you get like in Pirates of the Caribbean, where he gets the black spot, and that's the mark, like that's
Mm-hmm.
the mark of Davy Jones marking him for the Kraken, so the Kraken will come and get him. Like that's another place where my mind goes. I know that's not what it is, but that's where it goes.
All right. Well, in this episode, I'm just going to take a different journey than where that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, this is not true.
We're
This is
going to get
not
off
right
the
at
Black
all.
Pearl. We're gonna get off the Black Pearl, and we're gonna journey through like core biblical passages that introduce this mysterious like mark, uncover the identities of these two powerful beasts that precede. They actually come before the mark. They're the presiding factors before the mark comes on the scene. And then we're going to explore some of the tapestry of historical interpretations that I have like kind of laid out to shape our understanding as we've kind of seen since the first century to now modern day.
Mhm.
But I'm first of all, I'm going to tackle the verses in order to kind of give you the basics.
Okay.
But when I say tackle them, I'm going to tackle them and break them down in a simplified way, because the book of Revelation, where this kind of came from, is extremely symbolic. And I wanted to
Mhm.
tackle this to make it less super deep and not go over questions like which John wrote this, because it's like there's two different Johns in the New Testament. So which one wrote it? We're not going to cover that. Or the who's who of the beast. We're going to not talk about like, oh, it's definitely this person or it's definitely that person. We're going to talk some theories, because there are many interpretations. But I want to offer my thoughts and prayers.
Me fancy prayers.
My thoughts and prayers for what I take from the scriptures
Mhm.
and the studies of this history. So to begin, let's just unveil the mark first so you know where we're headed. Let's talk about
Gotcha.
the mark. All right. So our primary source of understanding, like I said, of the mark comes from the book of Revelation. This is the final book in the New Testament, and it specifically comes from chapters 13 and 14, and they kind of lay the groundwork of this prophecy of the mark. Plus, I need to mention here, keep this in mind, that the book of Revelation is highly symbolic book, like I said before, written in a style which is called like an apocalyptic literature, and this is used throughout the Bible. Like there's several books in the Old Testament, and like when I was writing this down, I was trying to mentally, because I thought of this, I was like, I think there's like 6 in the New Testament aside from the book of Revelation that use this style of
Oh
writing.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's just Revelation is highly symbolic and a lot less easy to read. It's just
Mhm.
like pure imagery. It's pure notes of the future and end times and spiritual truths and like numbers. Like there's all kinds of
Oh,
stuff going
okay.
on. Yeah.
Gotcha. Mhm.
So it's a lot less easy to understand than some of the other symbolic apocalyptic literature that's found throughout the Bible. Okay, which this literature style, like I said, it kind of is meant to reveal like
Mm-hmm.
divine plans using imagery, and judgment and salvation. So you'll see a lot of this stuff happening in like Isaiah and Daniel and a lot of things in the Old Testament and further into the New Testament when they're talking about like the second coming and all that stuff. Okay, so we discussed the type of figurative imagery in the episode with the David Koresh thing, like the rapture. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about some of that stuff, which at
Yep.
the end, I'm going to give you a little thing that if you believe in the rapture, you cannot believe in the beast.
Really?
Hmm. My thought process. I mean, it just depends on your theological thought process of what you think the rapture is. So you can't believe in both, and I'll tell you why. At the end. Womp womp womp.
At the end.
No, as I was writing my notes, I literally was like, I don't think you can believe in both. And this was literally an epiphany I had this morning when
Wow.
I was tightening up my notes. I had all my notes out, and then I was going back through and like reading them and like adding a little bit more here and there, like, and just kind of fine tuning everything. I was like, you know what? I don't think you can believe in both. So, anyways, like I said, Revelation is like riddled with a bunch of numbers, which is also evident in like Genesis. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in Genesis you'll see the number 6 symbolizing man. You'll see the number 7, which is symbolizing God's day because that's when he rested.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see like the 12 tribes and the 40 days, the 40 nights. There's all these numbers.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to read all the scriptures, but one, because I'm a firm believer that translation has went through like so many different remodels,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really not important about what we're talking about today. We just need the gist. We don't
Yeah.
need the specific, like what the angels were saying, and we don't need all of these things that are being said because it can be very confusing. It's very hard to read. To be TBH.
TBH. This is really
TBH.
difficult too.
Yeah,
So.
if you don't understand the time, because first of all, whoever's writing this, um, they're not well versed in this writing style. It's almost like because John that's writing this is on the island of Patmos. He's kind of like been marooned onto an island and being punished. But like his style of writing and his use of words, it's not his first language.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's
interesting.
not like, yeah, it's like his maybe a second language that he's writing to people to kind of hide because a lot of times in this is written in the first century. A lot of Christians were being persecuted by Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them, they had to kind of write in code and things like that, which we'll find,
Interesting.
especially with the number 666. So,
Hmm.
but I do want to travel down the chapter 13, darling. So
Chapter
this introduced the
13.
concept of the mark.
Mm-hmm.
So after previous to this in this chapter, it describes the two powerful beasts, which I'll get into. But I just wanted to get into shortly the text of verses 16 and 17 and then a little bit into 18. But this is from the ESV. And if, for those who don't, they want the King James Version, good on you. I use the ESV because it's a modern version of like going back and taking new knowledge of language and our understanding of language and reapplying it to the text that we have. So use what you want.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what this is what verse 16 and 17 says. It says, "Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name." Okay, so that's 16 and 17. And then it goes on into verse 18 and it offers a clue to this riddle, if you want, if you will.
Hmm.
"This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. The number is 666. Okay, so right away, within these 3 verses, we have several critical pieces of information
Mm-hmm.
about this mark. One, its placement. Its placement is going to be received on the right hand or the forehead, which I'll give you my thoughts in a second. We have we have its function. It's necessary for economic activity, buying and selling,
Mm-hmm.
and without it, basically you're excluded. If you don't have this, you're going to be cut off from basically necessities. You're not going to be able to buy food or supplies that you need to live.
Hmm.
So it's almost like if you don't have this, you're cut off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Identity is given here. It's connected to the name of the beast or the number of its name. Okay? And the number is explicitly stated as 666 in this, which I'll explain here in a second as well, which is explicitly stated in this this text here. All right, so the consequences of receiving the mark are strictly highlighted in Revelation 14 as it gives warning to those who put the mark on their forehead or their right hand. So I'm not going to go into that, but it's the semantics of if you put this mark on you, you will suffer the wrath of God. So if you're pressured and you're put into like this corner where it's like if you don't have this mark you can't buy or sell anything, and you choose to take on the mark, guess what, you're going to face God's wrath.
Interesting.
So you'll be persecuted in the afterlife. You'll have a short time to live on earth, but you're going to be persecuted with God's wrath. But in the opposite, if you don't take the mark, you will have salvation with God, but you will die your physical death earlier. You will be beheaded.
Oh.
Which one you want, girl?
Wow. Okay.
Which one you want?
Oh my Lord. Okay.
Yeah.
Why are we being beheaded?
Yeah.
Without the mark, bro.
But this is where I want to give some thoughts. Thoughts and prayers. I like the mirroring idea because my fascination is with the Old Testament. I love the Old Testament because I feel like it creates a foundation for some of the things that are in the New Testament. But there's a mirrored action here with the head and the hand. And I think it sometimes gets missed when we're talking about the mark of the beast. But these verses are looked at literally as a physical or visual type of marking. Like we'll talk about, or, when you hear people like, oh, it's your social security number. Or it is like the chip they're going to put in you in the COVID vaccine. Like a lot of times, well, that was talked about back then in 2020. That, I'm being forced that if I don't have the vaccination, I'm not going to be allowed to buy from certain stores, get on an airplane. I'm not going to be allowed to do anything because I have my vaccination card.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, even with like Hitler, putting the numbers on the Jews was a thing, marking them.
Yeah, that's right.
That was against their will. They didn't have a choice. Like that was not even like, they didn't have a choice to like walk away.
Yeah.
So I don't think that even makes sense because this is giving you the option. You're given an option to like choose the mark.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I had another thought, and this is that particularly in the Old Testament, there is a scripture, and I cannot remember where it is. I'd have to look it up, but I do remember this being a thought process of when God makes a commandment, it talks about what a person is thinking and what a person is doing. There's a particular scripture that talks about the forehead and the right hand being complete devotion and allegiance to God. So the head is your thoughts and the hand is your
what you're doing.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
So then I got to the whole, I'm like, well, wait a minute. This is also the physical body and the spiritual body. Your hand is your physical, your head is your spirit. Put them together, and what do you get? You get your soul.
I was about to say, don't you get the soul? See? I remember it. I'm learning.
Now, a question. Have you ever heard the phrase, know what thy right hand is doing?
Yes and no. That sounds very familiar, but it's not something I've heard often enough to be well versed in it, shall we say.
Well, in modern times, we hear, know what the right hand's doing. And typically, over time, this phrase has particularly become common as an idiom for the left doesn't know what the right is doing. So it has been kind of changed and evolved to basically considering like a lack of communication or a lack of coordination within an organization or group. So it's used differently, and it signifies just this inefficiency. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you got to tell me what your right hand's doing. So it's almost like people wanted to know what the right hand was doing, because you're not supposed to let the left hand is not supposed to know what the right hand's doing. Matthew 3 says, "But when you give to the needy, do not let the left hand know what your right is doing." This is my whole concept of like, don't take pictures on TikTok of people that you're giving water to in Atlanta because they're homeless. Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing it because your left hand's holding the phone.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
give freely to the poor, to the needy, and don't tell people about it. Don't make it. You don't have to tell everybody about your devotional boxes that you're building. Just make them.
Just make them and just put them out there. Yeah, because then you're doing it selfishly instead of selflessly.
Right. So when I was writing the whole like head and hand, I was like, oh, don't let I remember the whole scripture about not knowing what the right hand is doing. Okay. So now let's talk about the two beasts. These are the two beasts, and this is how they're kind of like the architects of deception. They're going to bring forth the mark. Okay. They're kind of a part of the bringing the mark to be. So before the mark can be implemented, the book of Revelation describes these two distinctly different, rising, yet cooperative beasts. Okay. These figures are crucial because they set the stage, wielding this immense power and deception. Okay. So the first beast, this is the one that comes out of the sea. It's depicted as having 7 heads with 10 horns.
Ooh.
Yeah, with 10 crowns on its horns, and this blasphemous name as all over its head, on its heads. So that's its one symbol or one image of it. It looks like those hybrid creatures that we've talked about were in the sleep demon episode. So like leopard-like creature with feet like a bear and a mouth like a lion. This combines like kind of like this powerful characteristic of like empires described in the Old Testament prophecies, which Daniel in the Old Testament is like very parallel when it comes to the imagery and how it reads in parallel to Revelation. Both are very visual, like descriptive books, like visions. Yeah. It's two men having visions, essentially. So this is
just two men seeing things.
Right? Having these images. One of the next texts in Revelation 13, the first 10 verses, states, "The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority." So this first beast is given its power by the dragon. I'm going to take it back.
I didn't know dragons were in the Bible.
Well, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson on that. Most people don't know that dragons are in the Bible because of the change in language. From Hebrew and Latin and Greek and stuff, there's a loss in translation a lot of times. So in Genesis, when the creature is in the Garden of Eden, the craftiest creature, this beautiful creature, this beloved creature, is called a seraphim. A seraphim is a winged serpent. Okay,
yeah.
So here is your dragon in Genesis.
I like it.
So yeah, in Revelation, this seraphim, which was a Hebrew teaching from Genesis, is later depicted as the Satan by Christians, which I've maybe taught you before that the Satan in Hebrew means the oppressor or the opposer, and is not always talking about the devil. Anybody that opposes the question or questions God or anything, that they're considered the Satan. So essentially we're going to talk about the devil is giving this beast its power. Okay. So the devil is giving this first beast its power and his throne and great authority. And then on one of its head, it appears to have a fatal wound. This is kind of thought to be maybe an assassination attempt, possibly. But then it's healed miraculously.
Interesting.
Astonishing the world, leading people to worship both the dragon and the beast. Thoughts and prayers. This beast is given authority to wage war against the saints and rule over every tribe, people, language, and nation for like 42 months.
42? That's awkwardly specific.
Well, it's kind of a common prophetic time frame, but it's about 3.5 years.
Okay. Interesting.
So historically, the first beast is often interpreted being a representation of a powerful, oppressive political or empirical system like Nero or Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Like Caesar Nero, like would be in the Roman times when kind of like this was being recorded during the first century.
Interesting.
Yeah. So its origins are from the sea. Can be can symbolize like this tumultuous nation across waters or something. You know, like you gotta realize this was written in the Holy Land,
Yeah.
and then you see this great power from across the waters. Side eye, wink,
Hmm.
wink.
Hmm. Hmm.
The healing of deadly wounds and this reassurance of this power, almost like a false resurrection, making it appear invincible and worthy of global worship. Okay, so, anyways, so
I
this
can't even
this
see how
first,
hard I'm side eyeing right now.
I, well, I can't see you side eyeing because I have my notes pulled up, and I can't really see all of your face, only partial side eye. So just kind of like it's like a like.
It's like it's like one eye's twitching.
It's a muscle spasm. This first this first beast the I remember the Dr. Seuss, the East Beast and the West Beast. The West
Oh,
Beast.
geez. Love Dr. Seuss. Oh, my childhood.
The first beast typically represents worldly power, political
Mm-hmm.
domination, like I said, overt rebellion against God. But I don't let's just kind of put a pin in that one right there because I don't think it's as noticeable because there's phrases in the Bible where Jesus says that there will be people who claim to carry his name who will not even know who he is.
So
Just
when you
saying.
say claim to carry, the
So when they carry his name, but they will
side
not
eye
know
got
who, they
worse.
will not, yeah, they wouldn't be able to recognize him if he was standing in front of them for sure.
When he says carry his name, does that mean they sit there and say, like, I'm a follower of Jesus, or they say, I am?
No, they carry his name like they are a
Like,
follower.
I'm a follower. Okay, okay,
Right,
okay.
right.
I think my eyeballs are about to pop out of my head from how much I'm side eyeing right now.
All right. Now let's turn to the second beast, the beast of the West. I'm kidding. It's not the, it's just I'm referring to Dr. Seuss. The East Beast and the West Beast. So the second beast, now this is described in Revelation 13, 11 through 18. Now this beast is distinct, emerging out of the earth. And it has very different appearance and role. Okay. Now it
Mm-hmm.
has two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. That's the difference. So the two horns like a lamb is this is the imagery that's painted of Jesus. He's the lamb with the two horns. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But the difference is this one speaks like a dragon. So this is the coming of the Antichrist because this is the
Oh.
yes. So first beast is the false prophet, second beast is the Antichrist. Yeah. So this is a crucial detail because this appears to be gentle, innocent, even Christ-like, like I said, like the lamb with the horns, but its nature is revealed by its dragon-like voice, signifying the deception and its allegiance to the devil, um, the dragon.
Hmm.
This beast exercises all the authority of the first beast on its behalf and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose fatal wound has been healed. Okay, so this first beast is the one that that the Antichrist is gonna push to be worshipped. It
Wow.
performs great signs, even causing fire to come from heaven to the earth in full view of the people, so everybody can see the fire that's coming from heaven. I mean, this is supposed to mimic God's immense power when aiming to deceive. Like, keep in mind that this has been written in the first century, long before modern technology of aircrafts. So while John is
I was
seeing
about to
this,
say, when you said that, my first thought was
Mhm.
was like, oh, it's almost like,
no, at the end, I'm going to give you some thoughts about how if John from the first century was envisioning modern society, not knowing what he'd have to compare it to things he knows. So I'll go there at the end. I
Carissa,
will not leave you hanging like that.
you better not. You better
Yeah,
not.
yeah. Another crucial thing is the second beast is the one that is directly responsible for implementing the mark of the beast. as in Revelation 13:16 states, it also forced all people to receive the mark. Okay, so let's go here. The second beast is often understood to represent a religious propaganda of power that works in conjunction with the political power of the first beast. So the first beast is the overall power. Second beast works to kind of push its propaganda. The spiritual deceptions, the false miracles to compel humanity to worship this first beast. The spiritual arm of the false prophet. This prepares for this ultimate control mechanism. This is it's preparing everything. It's kind of giving these things that set in the stage to worship. Everybody's looking towards this false god, this false prophet, and this antichrist. And then it's everybody's got its eyes turned there. You must take the mark to prove that you are a part of our following,
Yeah,
and everybody else must be cut off. So we have this clear partnership. We've got the first beast, who's this global political authority driven by the devil. And we have this second beast, this religious or ideological enforcer, deceiving the people into worshiping the first one. So the mark of the beast is their ultimate tool of economic control and a visible sign of spiritual allegiance to their side. So, thoughts so far? You got any thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts, Karissa. I have a lot of thoughts, actually. So, a lot of thoughts that I shall keep to myself. But the one that I will not keep to myself is when they sit here and they talk about the beast, and they're talking about the second one being this more political power, first one being more religious. Do you think that this could also be symbolic of a group, like a religious group, or a
specific religious group?
Or yeah, well, not a specific, but just in general, if we're going to interpret this in general, not saying anything about pointing fingers, but in general, do you think that it is meant to be interpreted as two individuals who will come about, that these beasts are symbolic of? Or could it be an individual plus a group or two groups? Do you think that there's any kind of change in that interpretation?
Well, anthropologically speaking, most groups, no matter the size, typically has a forerunning leader.
That's true.
So even if it is a group, there's still a head person, because you cannot have that massive a group of people without some kind of central leader.
Interesting. Okay.
Or board of leaders, type thing. They still have a central head. There's still a head of the beast.
Yeah.
Even if it's 7 leaders, maybe there's 7 heads to the one group, whatever it may be. All right. So I want to take you down let's shift this landscape a little bit and give you some historical interpretations. So the biblical descriptions of the mark of the beast and the two beasts are extremely symbolic. If you try to read Revelation, it's extremely confusing. And especially throughout history, people have tried to take that confusion and interpret into literally and figuratively applications into their modern times, what's going on in their own social anxieties. And this has led to some fascinating and sometimes controversial, interpretations.
I imagine so.
Yeah, so let's start with some of the first in the early 1st through 4th century. This is the early church, and this is when Nero was considered to be 666. So one of the earliest and most historical grounded interpretations is from the Roman Emperor Nero, using the practice of, it's called gematria. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. That's where you assign a name, or where letters in a name are assigned a numerical value. So the Greek spelling for Nero Caesar, when translated into Hebrew and then assigned a numerical values, totals 666.
Interesting.
Right. And then when the transliteration into Hebrew then assigns the values, back this up. So the numerical thing when translating it from Hebrew and then assigning the numerical values to 666. Nero was literally the person who persecuted the early Christians, who forced them to worship the emperor, during this whole time. So for early Christians, Nero was a real threat. So that concept of a mark for allegiance and economic exclusion would have been terrifyingly real when John was writing this.
That's true.
Yeah. But additional evidence that points towards Nero of this time frame was some ancient manuscripts. I told you about an ancient manuscript that was kind of found in the past 20 years.
Yeah, it was like I guess newer in history type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's an older manuscript, but it's written in a different text in Latin. So in Latin, you lose one of the letters from Caesar Nero. You lose a letter in his name, which takes off like 50 points from the House of Gryffindor. So this thing is that number makes the number 6. When you do this translation, the translation is 616, which also fits with Nero Caesar, okay, in Latin. So both of the texts fit with Nero Caesar.
Interesting.
Yes, but this is the thing. This is what John knows at this point. So when he's comparing what he sees, he's comparing it potentially, if he's either talking about his time, what's happening, which wouldn't be a future apocalyptic writing, but he's also could be talking about what he's experiencing and seeing it again in the future.
Well, because history repeats itself.
Yes, he could be seeing what Nero was doing currently, but seeing it on a way different scale in the future.
Seeing it repeat again, yeah. Interesting.
And using like symbolic language to describe that. All right, so the 5th to 16th century, this is kind of like the medieval period. This is the Middle Ages. So the identity of the Antichrist often conflicted with the beast, and the mark became a point of contention for Christians in Europe. Reformers and people who were leaving the Catholic Church pointed to the papacy as being the beast, particularly during the periods of political and theological disagreements when they were kind of going after heretics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when the Bible was going through such a remodeling phase in this century, this is kind of when they were figuring out what the Bible was going to be.
Yeah.
Figures like the Pope were sometimes accused of wielding the power of the beast due to their perceived authoritarian rule over deviation of the Bible and its teachings. Not to mention, this is also in the latter time of the 15th century. This is kind of when the church is taking all the magic out of the scriptures and isolating it and giving it to necromancers to control demons.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I remember you talking about that. I can't remember which episode, but I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, that's several. But this is kind of that time frame. So they're getting that pulled out, and like the occults are starting to take place. The occults are taking that same teachings. They're allowed to start using these because the occults were kind of like the housing for the necromancy that emerged out of the Catholic Church. But so that's what's going on. So this is kind of paving the road for a lot of the killings of heretics and the witch hunts and intense religious rivalries. So this was a huge struggle in this 5th through the 15th century. And then you get to the Reformation era. So the Reformation, that's around 16th through the 18th century. So you got people, again, who think that the Catholic Church is a part of the Antichrist movement with the mark of the beast. And it really kind of intensifies with Martin Luther, John Calvin, and other reformers. And so you got this whole like whore of Babylon. Like they're calling the church the whore of Babylon. So these kinds of things were kind of like going along as Christian and Catholic dogma kind of like butt heads and like how they were practicing sacraments and how they were using their authority. So this was a powerful rhetoric tool that people that were against the church really struggled, and not to mention in Rome with the Roman Catholic Church, because you just had Rome as this huge Christian persecutor, and now they have taken your religion and they're telling you how to believe in your religion. Yeah, so this was very real for people back then to see this beast. Now let's go to the modern days. The modern days? Yeah, so this is like 19th century to like present time. So our technology starts to advance. Globalism is emerging.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Interpretations of the mark significantly change and shift. Barcodes, you got the chips where people are like thinking you're gonna adhere to universal chipping. You've got global governments, that one world currency ideas that people worry
Yeah.
about, like, oh my gosh, it's symbolizing the forthcoming of the Antichrist and
Wow.
the
That's
mark of the beast.
it's like
Yeah.
they're putting on every single new thing.
Well, I
Like
mean,
that must
even
be
like
it. That must be it. That
AI,
must be
and
it.
so if you think about AI, you use your
Mm-hmm.
hands to swipe or whatever, and then
Mm-hmm.
you use your facial recognition. There's all kinds of ways you can look at that.
That's true.
Like different ways like of identifying people with social security numbers or their credit card information or
Mm-hmm.
identification through your IP address. There's the spiritual allegiance. A significant number of theologians and scholars think that the mark of the beast, is a primarily a spiritual symbol rather than a literal physical implant. So this view, the mark of on the hand or the forehead, signifies allegiance. So it's the hand represents the actions and the deeds, like we said
Mm-hmm.
before,
Yeah.
and the forehead is representing the thoughts and beliefs of what you think of that power. So that organization, like we were talking, that they're still ahead of it. It may
Mm-hmm.
not be a literal person, but it is a group that there is
There
a
is a head of that group.
right. There's definitely a commander.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and to receive this mark, you have to kind of pledge your loyalty to this beast system. Like you have to pledge yourself to the world. You have to show your idolatry to the world, which means you're technically rejecting God and worshiping this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then in this light, the 666 is often seen as a man's number, like I said in the beginning. You know how
Mm-hmm.
angel numbers, even though angel numbers are not technically biblical, um, the number 666 is referred to as the number of man because on the sixth day God created man.
Oh,
777 is
interesting.
considered God's number because that's the ultimate expression of God's resting day and
Mm-hmm.
the divine. So
Interesting. Okay.
very interesting. Yes.
Interesting.
Now let's imagine John. John's on this island. Okay, he's just down there chilling on this island, and like the heavens open up, and he sees all these things.
He's like, oh my goodness, what is
Which I guess
happening?
I should have precursed that he's on this isolated island, and it's kind of like this vision opens up, and he sees all this like
Ooh,
stuff.
terrifying.
I'm like, what kind of peyote or mescaline
I
is
was
on this
about to say, what kind of shrooms did he find on
right? And
this
but
island?
it's very possible he could have had like a shroom growing on the side of this island and be like,
He's
oh my
like,
gosh,
I'm
I'm
so
starving.
hungry, I want to eat
I'm
this
so
thing. And
starving. I'm
the
gonna make us some
world opened
onions.
up.
I'm gonna saute these mushrooms in a pan.
Oh gosh.
All right, so let's imagine John. Like I said, he's a man of the first century, deeply rooted in agricultural, political, and the religious realities of his time.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly being transported to this modern world, okay, into our world. Could you imagine
Mm-hmm.
being like fast forwarded into like uh 2,000 years from now?
But
What
literally
we would
have
see,
no idea what was happening.
and us trying to come back and describe that to the people. Like,
You wouldn't even have the words.
no, we'd have to compare it and be like, well, it's kind of like a computer, but it was like when people describe UFOs, like when they get
Yeah, because you don't have the words to describe them. You can only compare to what you have, what people have seen.
yes, when people describe being abducted and they're like, well, it was kind of like this, but wasn't. It was like this. We don't have the words because guess what? It's not here. It's not ours. It's very
Mm-hmm.
foreign. It's very alien to us. Um, so he's only going to be able to use the language he knows, which is prophecy and allegory. He wouldn't understand computers. He wouldn't understand internet. He wouldn't understand algorithms, but he would perceive their effects in our structures. Okay. So by
Mm-hmm.
stripping away John's understanding of our scientific principles and our technologies, and instead focusing on what he would perceive them from his first century eyes and interpret them into like this apocalyptic framework, he would see our physical infrastructure, our devices, our societal functions as like awe-inspiring, terrifying, and extremely demonic
Mm-hmm.
manifestations. You
Yeah, he
know,
would, wouldn't he?
think of all the like lights and things that he wouldn't be used to seeing.
Yeah.
Especially our microphones right now, they'd be
Oh, that's
glowing.
right.
What are these
You're like,
demon things?
what demons are you summoning with these?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So this is where I was like, I wanted to offer some suggestions. So the emergence of the sea. John would see the beast emerging from this vast global network, like of like the submarine fiber optics. Think of that, like these
Mm-hmm.
things coming out of the ocean that they've put underwater, coming onto the land. You know, the cargo ships, the the motions of these international trade things that are happening. How this was given to him, and how these things went across the water. You know, the seven heads. I was thinking about this one. So the seven heads, which could be like some of the most prominent global internet exchange points. Like you've got Silicon Valley, you've got London, you've got Tokyo, you've got Singapore, you've got Shanghai,
That's
you got New York,
true.
you got Frankfurt. You got these major seven places, and he's envisioning these connection pieces. These places would appear almost like colossal. They'd be like super lit up, like lots of information coming in and out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this one, this one, I was like, okay, guys, I was going through, I was like, things I could think of. I couldn't think of things for everything, by the way, but I was on some of the ones I was thinking about. Blasphemous names are listed, things that would be like blasphemous names would be glowing.
Mm-hmm.
What about logos? Corporate logos. All these
That's
things that we have like
true.
current day. Like all these things would be like emblazoned bright and look like idols. Like people just
Yeah, they
go into them.
would.
Yeah, digital billboards, advertisements just flashing on the surface. John, he wouldn't be like, "What the heck's going on? Like, why is everything like
He'd be
so
so shook.
bright light, bright light?"
Oh my
Yeah. So
gosh.
these would be names of like false gods to him. These would be
Mm-hmm.
you would see people worshiping through like commerce and data and replacing the divine, because these things
Yeah,
are
yeah.
amazingly powerful looking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, we talked about like fire from heaven, as far as airplanes, but we
Oh
also
yeah,
have satellite debris and like laser
that's
light shows.
true.
A lot of these global events that we see with the power of drones and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be kind of like
That would
scary.
be fire from the heavens, because you wouldn't know that humans would be able to get to what he perceives as the heavens.
Yeah, and I already mentioned like on the forehead types thing, like with facial recognition, he would observe people kind of presenting their faces to this lens like open, and it's like, whoosh,
Yeah, yeah.
like you would see payment terminals, you would see
Mm-hmm.
like different things happening digitally, user profiles, like all these constant things that we find to be normal now because we've kind of been brought to them. But this digital engagement would be interpreted as like the mark of on the forehead, or
Mm-hmm.
signify some kind of like identity to this like serpent, this
Yeah.
yeah. Well, imagine though if it was like maybe AI talks back, you could have different voices coming from your phone.
Oh, that would be demons. That's a demon box, is what that is. That'd be the demon box.
Yeah, be a demon box.
It's exactly how you'd see that.
And as I promised before I end this segment, about the mark of the beast, I wanted to leave some food for thought because we did briefly talk about the rapture in a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
And if you believe in the rapture, like I said, good on you. But you cannot believe in the rapture and the two beasts that will emerge at the same time. Because now, different people believe they have different views of the rapture. Like some think it's like a
Mm-hmm.
pre-tribulation, some think it's like a post-tribulation. Sometimes people think it's like a pre-war type thing. When they think the rapture is going to happen is sometimes varies. But if you believe in a pre-rapture before the coming of Christ type thing, um, you can't believe in the mark of the beast, because the mark of the beast scenario, it describes a period where two beasts are active enforcing the mark. Okay, those
Mm-hmm.
who take the mark face God's wrath. Those who refuse it will face persecution, including beheading, which is mentioned in Revelation 24, which it says, "Those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus and for the word of God, and who had not worshipped the beast or its image, had not received the mark." Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so those are God's people that are still on earth to experience this beast activity. Whereas the rapture, the concept from the Latin meaning of carrying away, is referring to where the believers are caught up, and this idea is that Christ will return to take his believers from the earth. And so then the question becomes, when does this happen relative to the mark of the beast period? Because if you're being taken up like a thief in the night, ain't nobody suffering the beast scenario. It's only going to be those who serve the beast. So
wild.
Yeah.
Wild
that's
stuff.
My thoughts on that. There was my thoughts and prayers.
I'd like your prayers. Please.
Any questions? All right. Well, hopefully if you're listening to this, you have already decided to follow us, or you're clicking that little button down there in YouTube and just subscribing to us. If you'd like to know how to follow us on our social media, you can go to theparallaxpodcast.com, click on either of those two little cute icons, and go and follow us. If you have questions, thoughts, and prayers, you can go to info@theparallaxpodcast.com and give us a little shout out, give us your thoughts, and just give us what you want. But until then, thank you for listening. I'm Karisa.
And I'm Willow. Good night, mortals.